Okay, welcome to this week's webinar. In the spotlight is Fionn Downs, and he is going to introduce the supports that he is leading on in the Maths and Engineering Support Centres. Take it away, Fionn. Thanks a million.
Hello, my name is Fionn Downs, and I've recently started working at the Maths Support Centre in IT Sligo, which was established through CELT, the Centre for Enhancement of Learning and Teaching. We offer free support to students in mathematical aspects of their studies through providing guidance, tutorials, and content creation. We have a number of ways that students can avail of our support services, including our drop-in centre, online tutorials, our IT Sligo webpage in Moodle, and finally via direct contact through email and Microsoft Teams. For this presentation, I'm going to briefly introduce the support services that we provide to students. Let's start with our drop-in centre. We are located in room B1086, which is nice and central on the ground floor of the Science Building, near familiar campus landmarks such as the canteen and the auditorium. We are open to students during the times shown on screen several days per week. The drop-in centre is a space where students can come to us seeking assistance with any mathematical parts of their studies. We ask them what course they're studying and what they would like assistance with. Generally, they will come to us with a variety of questions that they've seen in their classes or past exam papers, and we help them in several ways. Sometimes this means starting by introducing some of the core concepts of arithmetic and algebra. Other times they simply want assistance in improving their grades from a 2-1 to a 1-1 and would like us to check through their workings and methodology so that they're reassured it's being done correctly. We also offer online support in the form of one-to-one or group tutorials. These can be booked by students through our Moodle page and are generally held outside of normal class hours. These online sessions tend to suit students in particular who have very full timetables or who are studying remotely. Online tutorials are generally taught through Adobe Connect or Microsoft Teams. This makes it easy to circulate any notes generated during the meeting with all of those who were in attendance. We have a page on the IT Sligo website where we advertise the support service that we offer to students, as well as indicate what specific subject areas we can offer assistance with. For example, sometimes students might not know that we are available to help them with mathematical aspects of their studies in physical or inorganic chemistry. Or maybe they don't know that they can come to us for assistance with financial mathematics. Something I'm currently trying to develop my competence in is the SPSS, the Statistics for Psychology and Social Sciences software that's widely used in academia. We also have included a section linking to other online resources that we think students will find particularly useful in their studies. Online calculators, such as those designed at Wolfram Alpha and eMathHelp, are very useful when doing assignments, as well as checking through solutions. 3 Blue, 1 Brown is a YouTube channel set up in 2015 by a maths graduate from Stanford that explains mathematical concepts using animation as opposed to a conventional lecture format. It gets very positive reviews, especially from people who tend to be quite visual with their approach to problem solving. A very useful one to know about for engineers is the Helm project, the Helping Engineers Learn Mathematics at Loughborough University in London. This project funded a series of open source workbooks that go through much of the material they will study as part of their respective degree programs. Of course, there's Khan Academy, which is founded 15 years ago and is arguably the world leader in open online self-paced education in the STEM fields. Lastly, of course, it's always a good idea to remind students that they have access to past exam papers for each of their modules. A number of other math support centres exist in colleges around the country that also provide some great resources which we encourage our students to avail of. We try to replicate what we think works well in other math support centres and employ it in our own. Many of those who come to us have friends and relatives attending courses in various other colleges who are quite happy to discover that there are math centres they can also avail of. For example, home economics or nursing students at St. Angela's in Sligo who study physics in their first year are generally quite happy when they discover that they can avail of the services provided by SUMS at NUI Galway. Another service that we have available to students is interactive self-paced learning through the NUMBAS e-assessment system developed at Newcastle University. This allows you to generate mathematical quizzes that students can use to learn various concepts like the algebraic example shown here, which is factorizing a quadratic equation. This quiz is not graded, so students can attempt it any number of times without fear of hurting their continuous assessment scores. After they submit their attempt, they can select a reveal answers hyperlink. This causes a pop-out to appear that contains general information about the question, along with a solved version of this specific problem. In this case, it gives us a high-level summary of how to factorize a quadratic equation and the resultant factorized form of the equation from our question. This type of quiz can also be generated for more complicated questions, such as when the solution to a quadratic does not yield nice, clean integer solutions, and we have to work with irrationals or imaginary numbers, or use the infamous, or in some cases, infamous minus b formula. I'll also shortly introduce the Engineering Support Centre. Some resources were developed for engineering students in the field of electronics last year by Faizan Munawar and Conrad Mulrennan. I was taking a data science course last year from IBM, and they roped in commentary from Professor Eric Miller, who is a doctor from MIT and is currently working at the University of Toronto. A question was posed to him at the time. The question is, what is engineering? To which he had a great laugh and responded with, engineering is what engineers do. In our experience, there's not a black and white line between mathematics and engineering, because engineers do quite a lot of math. If a student comes to us with questions related to circuits in their phased electrician course, or very specific applications of the Fourier transform in optical metrology, it could be argued that this is physics or this is engineering and is really outside of the scope of the Math Support Centre. That's why we have the Engineering Support Centre for assisting with engineering aspects of the student's course. This is primarily open to first years, but if we can help someone, we try to. These are some of the statistics for the Math Centre for the past couple of years. To give a high overview, if we were to group students by faculty, the majority of students that come to us are studying engineering, with science in close second. If we were to group students by year of study, the majority of students that attend our drop-in and online tutorial sessions are students in their first year. Looking at individual semesters, we find that, unsurprisingly, there was a sharp decline in the number of drop-in sessions held in the lockdown period of 2019 to 2020, but there was a surge in online classes. This data set was compiled from attendance sheets going back as far as 2018. If you would like a walkthrough of some of the Python scripts that were used to generate this data collection, webscaping, cleaning, and plotting, then come by the Math Support Center. You can infer quite a lot with the data available from the Moodle pages. A large part of what we do is try to improve students' confidence when doing maths. I've never met anyone who's bad at maths, but I've met a lot of people who think they are. Math anxiety has recently been defined as a common affective disorder in students that is characterized by intrusive thoughts that disrupt critical cognitive resources required for math problem solving. It is that feeling of tension that interferes with the ordinary manipulation of numbers and solving of mathematical problems. Math anxiety has been studied in quite some detail, and predictably, having high anxiety around the field of mathematics negatively affects your performance. When students come to us, we meet them where they're at. For some, it's the first time they've returned to education in years. For others, they may have accumulated quite a number of negative experiences in this area, resulting in a mental block, preventing creativity, motivation, and productivity. We build confidence through doing questions, getting the correct answer, and doing it again for slightly more difficult questions. We create a space where the student is able to focus on the problem and mitigate the risk of becoming overwhelmed by providing stability and gentle, structured guidance. We're coming toward the end of this talk, so I thought it would be nice to take a look at some of the examples of questions that we get in the center. This is a question from an exam paper titled Introduction to Maths from the Level 6 Quality Assurance course that a first-year student brought into me this week. The question asks you to rearrange the equation shown in terms of the variable u. So how do we approach this? We would start with a quick refresher in some of the rules of arithmetic and algebra, and then systematically walk through a solution with the student, explaining the rationale behind each step. So let's mark the variable u in red so we can easily see what we're looking for. We start by removing anything we can from the same side of the equal sign as the u we're trying to isolate. We remind the student that if we're going to perform an operation on one side of the equal sign, then we have to do the same on the other. So we subtract the v squared term from both sides of the equal sign. The like terms cancel out as indicated by the strike through markers, leaving us with the expression on the bottom for u squared, which is a step closer to the final solution that we want. Next, we need to remove the square term accompanying the u. This is done by taking the square root of the expressions on both sides of the equal sign. And finally, we arrive at an expression of the equation in terms of u. Let's suppose they have a more complicated question, such as this one I also received this week from a student who is in their second year civil engineering. They're studying applications of first order differential equations, and they had this specific question on exponential growth and decay calculus. They are asked to derive a general solution that describes population for any value of time, and they don't know where to begin. The student is already quite far along in their studies, but unsure how to go about solving this specific question. So we would start by clearly defining each variable as best we can, and then restating the question to identify what we are trying to do. In this case, we want to isolate the p term. Then, in a similar way that we solved the algebraic problem before, we go through step by step what operations we can perform on the equation to arrive at our final expression. We make sure to refer to or define any formula that we are using during any of our steps, be it redefining an expression using the rules of algebra or rules of integration. In my experience, students can quite easily learn to replicate a step-by-step process of what to do to solve a math problem. But by really explaining the rationale behind each step, it helps them to understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, and makes the next chapter of their studies much less daunting than simply learning to repeat a new set of rules on few mathematical symbols arranged on a page. And this is my last slide. On behalf of our team and myself, I wish to say thank you very much for your time, and I welcome any questions that you might have.
Thanks a million, Fionn.